This is ShadowQuant, Crypto Edition, brought to you by AresLabs.ai. Before we begin, please note, what you are about to hear is an AI agent panel. All analysis, voices, and production are generated by artificial intelligence. Nothing you hear constitutes financial advice. Always do your own research. Today is Friday, April 24, 2026, and this is the After Hours session. Now, let's get into it. Bitcoin just fell below $77,361, down 1.13% as fear sentiment spikes to 14/100, the lowest level since early 2025. Altcoins are mixed, with APT up 3.29% and TRX down 1.61%. The broader market is under pressure, with SPY at $442.11 and QQQ at $380.44. What's driving the sell-off, and where does this leave the crypto market? Let's start with the recap. Pulse, your call last time was bullish on Dogecoin, but it dropped to $0.09. You were wrong. What went wrong?
I misread the sentiment. Retail enthusiasm was fading, and the VIX was stabilizing. I'll be watching the fear and greed index more closely and looking for divergence in altcoin performance.
Grid, your call was bullish on Bitcoin, targeting $78,500. It fell to $77,361. You were wrong. What did you miss?
I underestimated the impact of the Iranian outflows and the CBDC ban. I'll be focusing more on macro-driven flow data and less on short-term chart patterns.
CIPHER, you were bullish on Bitcoin too. Your target was $78,500, but it fell. You were wrong. What was your mistake?
I missed the institutional risk-off behavior. I'll be monitoring decentralized finance TVL and whale activity more closely to spot early signs of capital flight.
SPECTER, you called bearish on Bitcoin, and while your target was $76,000, the price is at $77,361, so you were wrong on the target. But your direction was correct. What's your angle this time?
I'm not defaulting to bearish. I'll be watching Bitcoin's $76,000 support and the fear and greed index more closely. If it breaks below $76,000, the case for a deeper correction strengthens.
Apex, you were bullish on Bitcoin and missed the call. You were wrong. What's your new approach?
I'll be focusing more on altcoin resilience and sector rotation. If Bitcoin continues to underperform, it's a sign of broader market weakness, not just crypto-specific fear.
Let's set the table. The top story is Bitcoin underperforming as crypto markets show mixed resilience amid regulatory and macroeconomic pressures. Fear and greed is at 14/100, extreme fear, up 12 over 7 days. Bitcoin's dominance is down to 58.6%, pressured by altcoin resilience. What's the broader context, and what's the market telling us?
The fear is real, and it's not just crypto-specific. The VIX is stable, but fear is rising. This is a classic risk-off environment, and Bitcoin is the first to react. If it breaks below $76,000, we could see a broader market sell-off.
The sentiment is extreme. Reddit and social media are flooded with fear, and retail investors are exiting. But some altcoins, like APT, are showing strength. That's a sign that fear is not uniform. It's more about sector rotation than a total collapse.
Let's start with Bitcoin. It's at $77,361, down 1.13% on the day. What's the technical outlook, and what does the flow data say?
Bitcoin is testing the $76,000 support level, which is critical. If it holds, we could see a bounce. But if it breaks, the bear case strengthens. The 24H high is at $78,507, and the 24H low is at $77,321. We're in a tight range, but the fear is pushing the market lower.
The flow data is telling a different story. Institutional investors are pulling back, and we're seeing outflows from Bitcoin. But altcoins like APT are showing strength. That's a sign of capital shifting into perceived safe havens. The decentralized finance TVL is flat at $82.1 billion, suggesting limited yield-seeking activity.
The sentiment is extreme, and it's not just about Bitcoin. Altcoins are showing resilience, which is a positive sign. But the fear is still rising, and that's a risk factor. I'm watching the fear and greed index more closely. If it hits 10 or below, that's a bubble signal.
Let's move to Ethereum. It's at $2,312.74, down 0.82%. What's the technical and flow outlook?
Ethereum is testing the $2,350 resistance level. If it breaks above that, we could see a rally. But the 24H high is at $2,336.24, and the 24H low is at $2,302.28. The technicals are mixed, but the fear is still weighing on the price.
The flow data shows that Ethereum is holding up better than Bitcoin. Whales are accumulating at key levels, which is a positive sign. But the broader market is still under pressure, and that's a drag on the price.
The sentiment is still bearish, but Ethereum is showing more resilience than Bitcoin. That's a sign that the market is rotating into altcoins. But we need to watch the fear and greed index. If it spikes, that could trigger more selling.
Now let's look at APT. It's at $0.98, up 3.29%. What's the technical and flow outlook?
APT is showing strength, with a clear breakout above the $0.95 level. The 24H high is at $0.98 and the 24H low is at $0.94. This is a key indicator of altcoin resilience. If it holds above $0.95, we could see a rally to $1.
The flow data is positive. We're seeing inflows into APT, which is a sign of capital rotation. But the broader market is still under pressure, and that's a risk factor. We need to watch the fear and greed index. If it spikes, that could trigger more selling.
The sentiment is still bearish, but APT is showing more strength than Bitcoin. That's a positive sign. But the fear is still rising, and that's a risk factor. I'm watching the fear and greed index more closely. If it hits 10 or below, that's a bubble signal.
SPECTER, you pushed back on grid read on Bitcoin. Let's dig into that. What's your argument?
Grid is focusing on the $76,000 support level, but the broader market is showing signs of a risk-off shift. The fear and greed index is at 14/100, and that's a signal of extreme fear. If Bitcoin breaks below $76,000, it could trigger a broader market sell-off.
I understand the concern, but the $76,000 level is critical. If it holds, we could see a bounce. But if it breaks, the bear case strengthens. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but the technicals are clear.
I'm leaning towards grid technical read. The flow data shows that Bitcoin is under pressure, but the support level is still a key factor. If it holds, we could see a rally. But if it breaks, the case for a deeper correction strengthens.
My 24-hour call. Bitcoin bearish. Target $76,000 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $76,000 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $76,000 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $75,000 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $76,000 by next session.
The market is under pressure, with Bitcoin and altcoins showing mixed resilience. The fear and greed index is at 14/100 extreme fear, up 12 over 7 days. What to watch tomorrow? Bitcoin's $76,000 support and the fear and greed index. This is AI-generated content for informational purposes only, not financial advice. That wraps up this edition of ShadowQuant Crypto Edition. Stay tuned for the Tokyo session, where we will see how these calls play out. Until then, trade safe.